The federal police rejects Daniel Vorcaro's plea bargain. The federal police considered that the information presented by the banker was not new and does not justify signing the agreement. Yeah, from what it looks like, Daniel Vorcaro tried to pull one over on the federal police. He doesn't even know that the federal police already has a lot of evidence, documents, audio recordings, screenshots of conversations, in short, a series of things that are proof. And that in the plea bargain he presented, there was nothing new and there were even some contradictory situations. Trying to fool people there. But there's a catch. The Attorney General decided to give Daniel Vorcaro one more chance. The Attorney General, I want new facts. In other words, I want the names you omitted, the ones involved in the biggest banking fraud in Brazil, maybe even in the world. I'm going to give you one last chance. He even left the special cell at the federal police headquarters, the master suite where Bolsonaro was being held, and went to a regular cell. And security was reinforced. They're afraid he'll be silenced. Daniel Vorcaro could be the target of an attack. And in this environment, the Prosecutor General, Paulo Gonet, decided to give him one more chance. He will be able to present a new plea deal proposal. And it will be the last chance. And let's see what comes out of this situation. The federal police already have a lot of things, a lot of evidence. According to the latest information we have, 9 cell phones belonging to Daniel Vorcaro were seized. There are things about orgies. In fact, there was a federal congresswoman who looked and said, wow, his is big. Andre, are you kidding? I'm not kidding. At one of the parties. That's why the justice handling the case, Andre Mendonça, ordered the secure room to be closed. Do you remember? But Andre Mendonça, seriously, how could you let deputies and senators in without even knowing what was inside? Exactly. There were scenes of explicit sex at Daniel Vorcaro's parties. That's why Andre Mendonça at first allowed deputies and senators to have access as part of the congressional inquiry into the INSS. Do you remember? Then later, Andre Mendonça rushed and ordered the secure room to be closed. No one could have access until all those parts were removed. So there are parties with orgies, with explicit sex, and there's much more than you can imagine. And there are a lot of married people who are scared. And I believe that many of them, even those who say God, country, and family, are included. Obviously, the police don't pay attention to this moral aspect. That's a fact. They pay attention to the act itself and the criminal offense. That's a fact. But there are a lot of things there that can destroy politicians' marriages. Where Daniel Vorcaro held parties, orgies, invited politicians, even high-ranking officials, and brought in models, especially from Europe. They had to be non-Portuguese speakers, exactly so they wouldn't even know what they were talking about there. He said that there were people who left that vault room horrified because of what they saw there. So the federal police has a lot, guys. 9 of his cell phones, and he had the habit of keeping everything. Filming, recording, everything. Maybe that's why Flavio decided to confess. Because up until then, Flavio claimed he didn't know Vorcaro, had never seen him, and so on. Then suddenly the audio leaks, and there he is asking Daniel Vorcaro for money, and then he says that, you know, he was just asking for money for the film, but that he didn't know Daniel Vorcaro was a criminal. Then suddenly Flavio Bolsonaro said that he had met him at a meeting at Daniel Vorcaro's house. He said it was one of the meetings. In that specific meeting he mentioned, Daniel Vorcaro was wearing an electronic ankle monitor. Daniel Vorcaro had just been released from his first time in prison. So Flavio Bolsonaro and everyone already knew he was involved in a multi-billion-dollar fraud. So it wasn't like Flavio said, I didn't know he was involved and all that. So and honestly, Daniel Vorcaro probably recorded all the meetings, not just with Flavio Bolsonaro, but with other people who might be involved and benefited from the Banco Master fraud scheme. That's why he said it. He decided to speak up to try to normalize the situation after so many lies, because he knows what he did and he knows this will come to light. My dear, it's just the beginning. Several situations will come to light, situations in which Flavio Bolsonaro may be directly involved in various types of criminal organizations. There's this situation I just revealed to you about transferring money to the militia through Carlisto, the militia guy who was convicted for involvement in a criminal organization related to the murder of Mariel Franco and Anderson Gomez. There's the situation with Flavio Bolsonaro's political group in Rio de Janeiro, along with Claudio Castro, former governor of Rio de Janeiro, who is part of Flavio Bolsonaro's political group. I'll repeat. So there's the criminal organization in Rio de Janeiro where several members of Flavio Bolsonaro's political group in Rio de Janeiro are already in prison. TH Joias, Rodrigo Bacelar. TH Joias, former state deputy, Rodrigo Bacelar, former state deputy, president of the Legislative Assembly. There's Tiago, who was just arrested. In fact, a video was found on his cell phone showing more than 500,000 reais in cash. He recorded himself there discussing the scheme. There's the former governor of Rio de Janeiro himself, Claudio Castro, who was subject to a search and seizure operation. Where they broke a record, the federal police set a record for seizure of assets and funds in a single day, 52 billion reais, where, together with the company Refit, what did they do? A corruption and money laundering scheme. With corruption inside the government of Rio de Janeiro, and in other situations involving organized crime. With a lot of gas stations being raided, you can be sure of that. They're from the group, all of them are from Flavio Bolsonaro's political group. Soon you'll find the link to Flavio Bolsonaro himself. Because let me tell you, they've already found the link to whom? With Bolsonaro's former minister also involved in the Banco Mar fraud. Who? Andrea, Senator Ciro Nogueira. They've already found the connection to Senator Ciro Nogueira, Bolsonaro's former chief of staff. And he's also implicated, pay attention to this here, everyone. He's also involved in the Banco Master fraud, and the senator is also involved in the Faria Lima fraud with connections to the PCC. You tell and I tell it's the same path. It's the same path. You just have to find the connecting link. Thank you. The Banco Master fraud is connected to the INSS fraud. The Banco Master fraud is connected to the criminal organization from Faria Lima, which is involved with the PCC. The Banco Master fraud is connected to the criminal organization from Refit in Rio de Janeiro, which has ties to the militia and to the Red Command. And everything that's being uncovered has what? Bolsonaro supporters involved? Just wait. It's the same criminal organization with its branches of coordination, especially in Rio de Janeiro with Claudio Castro and in São Paulo. And with Tarcísio de Freitas, Andrea, I don't know. With Ricardo Nunes, the mayor of São Paulo, I don't know. And we also have, obviously, Brasilia, especially the federal district, with whom? With Ibanez Rocha. Ibanez Rocha, former governor of the federal district, who simply took more than 12 billion reais from BRB, the public bank, and funneled it straight to that devil Daniel Vorcaro, buying worthless shares. He used public money and put it there. The federal police already know about this. The police want to know if public money went back into the pockets of the criminal organization as payment for a little monthly payoff, a bribe. In this case, it would be a huge monthly payoff, not a little one. More than 12 billion. In fact, regarding Ibanez Rocha, things are getting heated. Ibanez Rocha has stepped down because he says he's going to run for the Senate since he can't run for re-election. Then his vice, Celina Leon, took over. And there's a lot of fighting going on between them. There's a lot of fighting going on. Ibanez Rocha made a video with his political allies from the federal district saying that Celina doesn't want to continue the work. So what happened then? Yeah, there's a lot of fighting going on between Ibanez Rocha, the former governor of the federal district, and Celina. The former governor went on social media to make a video saying that she's not continuing all the work they'd been doing and so on. She made another video saying she took over the federal district when it was broke, with BRB bankrupt, in ruins, and they're really fighting with each other. So for me, this criminal organization is just one and the same, with branches operating in Rio de Janeiro, the federal district, Brasilia, and São Paulo. That's the situation. So that's what this criminal organization seems like to me. And where does this whole situation with Refit, the fuel compound, together with the Bolsonaro family fit in? The same political group in Rio de Janeiro has the same connection with the Bolsonaro supporter Ibanez Rocha in the federal district in Brasilia, there with Círio Nogueira, and has the same connection in São Paulo, whether with Tarcísio de Freitas or with Mayor Ricardo Nunes. That's the situation, especially because regarding Rio de Janeiro, we already know a lot of things, as I always explain to you. About the federal district and Brasilia with Ibanez Rocha and Senator Círio Nogueira, we already know a lot. And now the situations in São Paulo are coming up. From São Paulo as well, especially about the person, the governor, who is under suspicion, and that's being investigated. That's Sabesp, and the other one there, São Paulo's water and sewage agency, were privatized. And the suspicion is that there are companies from the Vorcaro group that are being privatized, and highlighting that Fabiano Zettel, who is in prison, just like Daniel Vorcaro, Fabiano Zettel, who is Daniel Vorcaro's brother-in-law, donated 2 million reais. And he was the biggest donor to Tarcísio de Freitas' campaign in 2022. Just like he was the biggest donor to Bolsonaro's campaign, donating 3 million to Bolsonaro in 2022. Is there free coffee for anyone here? And at the same time as all this, now Mayor Ricardo Nunes, also a Bolsonaro supporter, gets dragged into this mess. The involvement there, possibly, with Karina, who owns a company that won a bidding contract for work she had never done before, worth more than 108 million reais, and now something else has been discovered. Let's see here. Let's get to that point now. Thank you. Pay attention to this. You can put it right up, right, Central? Look at this. NGO linked to the film production company about Bolsonaro submitted 16.5 million in irregular invoices to the São Paulo City Hall. And it received advance payment from the bidding process they won. Let's move forward here. Let's read here and keep moving forward. The investigation revealed the use of canceled invoices, receipts without fiscal value, and even documents issued by the NGO itself to justify expenses in the millions between 2024 and 2025. In one case, the organization presented 4 invoices without fiscal validity to prove expenses of 8.5 million on electronic equipment rentals. The São Paulo City Hall funded 3.5 million for an event by the producer Didac Rose. The São Paulo City Hall spent 3.5 million to cover expenses for Connect Faith 2025, a gospel innovation fair held in July last year by Karina Gama. She is also the executive producer of Bolsonaro's film, the fictional biopic of Jair Bolsonaro. Sonaro. So there's also this information here. Look, 3.5 million for an event by producer Karina. What is already known about this Karina? This Karina, she was at the certification ceremony of the then federal deputy executive producer of the movie, Mario Frias. And he was Bolsonaro's Minister of Culture. She was there. Until then, she could have been an advisor, a campaign supporter, a supporter of Mario Frias, who only had a few people there: his wife, a relative, two advisors, and this Karina. So what happened? Suddenly, this Karina started to show up. This Karina opened a company. She opened an NGO. This company is GOP. GOP is the producer of Bolsonaro's movie. That has never produced a movie. From what it seems, it was created and established especially to make Bolsonaro's movie, to produce Bolsonaro's movie. She is the sole owner and producer of Bolsonaro's movie. She is the owner. Karina was making money from all sides, and her NGO received, as far as we know so far, 8 million reais from budget earmarks. From Mario Frias. Look, Mario Frias here again. From Bia Kicis, from Carla Zambelli, from Alexandre Ramage, and from Marcos Polon. All of them are Bolsonaro supporters. They injected public money from budget earmarks into this NGO of Karina's. And the suspicion which is being investigated is that this money was diverted to the film, so much so that Flavio Dino, who is the rapporteur on this matter, is after Mario Frias to summon him to explain this situation. And he can't find Mario Frias. Put it up, Central, the situation. You can put it up. Flavio Dino has been after Mario Frias for months now and still can't serve him. And he can't serve him. What's going on? The situation is so serious regarding this matter that Flavio Dino notified Hugo Mota. Like, I'm trying to notify a Brazilian federal lawmaker. It's not vacation. We're not on recess or anything. The work in parliament continues, and the guy simply doesn't stay in Brazil. At first, we heard he was in Dhaka, no, in Dubai. No, in Dubai. Eduardo Bolsonaro over there in Dubai. That's where Daniel Vorcaro's hacker fled to, and the federal police caught him there last week. Quite a coincidence, huh? Yeah. And now we have news that he's in the United States. Is he on vacation? That's what Flavio Dino wants to know. That's why Flavio Dino has now notified Hugo Mota, the president of the Chamber of Deputies. Is this Brazilian federal lawmaker on vacation? Did he take an early vacation? Did he take the recess early? Is he on medical leave? What's going on that he's not in Brazil working, or is he on an official mission? And if it's an official mission, what official mission is he on? Because I've been trying to summon him for 3 months and I can't because he's not in Brazil. You realize how serious this is. There are people who suspect that Mario Frias is afraid to come back to Brazil because he knows what they did last summer. Just so you know, Mario Frias said he didn't know Vorcaro. He said the movie didn't receive any money from Vorcaro. And now this week, Intercept Brazil released an audio of him thanking Daniel Vorcaro for investing in the multi-million movie. And it's not just a conversation. There's a WhatsApp chat. There's this audio. And I heard there's another audio of Mario Frias talking to Vorcaro. Mario Frias, who said he didn't know Vorcaro. Flavio Dino is after him. So what happens then? Mario Frias, together with these federal deputies, allocated 8 million reais in budget earmarks to Karina's company. Karina, owner of GoUp, the producer of Bolsonaro's film, who has never produced a film. And at the same time as that, what happens? We find out that this Karina, meanwhile, manages to get a contract with the São Paulo City Hall with Ricardo Nunes for 108 million reais for the distribution of free internet to the community with more than 5,000 access points. Even though she'd never worked in that area, she'd never done anything like that. And she won the bidding process and even received money in advance from this situation, totaling 108 million reais. And now we found out that the city hall paid 3.5 million for an event where Karina was responsible there in São Paulo. That millions that's what I just showed you now. Isn't that something, or do you want more? Is there still something missing for us to understand? What does this have all over it? Orange peel, orange juice, orange flavor. This has front written all over it. Squeeze that whole setup and what comes out? A criminal organization. For me, this, Karina, you can take it out. For me, this, Karina, is what a front person for the criminal organization that used Bolsonaro's movie to launder money and receive bribes. Also embezzling public money that Daniel Vorcaro stole from retirees, because he is also involved in the INSS fraud. What do you mean, Andre? Onyx Lorenzoni, Bolsonaro's Minister of Social Security, authorized Banco Master to make deductions from retirees and pensioners back in 2021. And he did this to thousands of retirees and pensioners who did not request any deductions or loans. So, what happened? The thief was visited by Senator Flavio Bolsonaro, and Flavio was demanding money. No, Andre, but Flavio said he went there to say that if he had known it was like that, he wouldn't have even asked him for money. And you believe Pinocchio. Did you believe it? You're very naive, or maybe you're a Bolsonarist, right? Because Bolsonarists don't think anymore. Only if that's the case. Guys, there's no escaping this criminal organization. There's nowhere to run. I'll say it again, this is just the beginning. And in a little while, in my view, what needs to happen, and Ibanez Rocha needs to be summoned. That Karina needs to be summoned or arrested. The owner of the house has also just shown up. What happened to make the whole situation even worse? The money from Daniel Vorcaro, which was supposed to go to the movie, had to go where? To the production company. Go up. It didn't reach the production company. I guess they didn't trust Karina much, right? It went to an account over there in the United States. Whose account is it? And who's the irresponsible one? Eduardo Bolsonaro, Andrea Gonçalves. Almost. He found a straw man. He found a straw man named Paulo Carlisto, who is his immigration lawyer, who has nothing to do with the movie, nothing to do with anything. And to me, he's just another straw man. He got the lawyer to open this account. He is the account holder and the money went there. He's Eduardo Bolsonaro's lawyer. The federal police are already seeking to lift the secrecy surrounding this fund and this account with the United States to find out where the money from this account went. The suspicion is that the money Daniel Vorcaro sent for the movie didn't actually go to the movie, but it went to the Bolsonaro family, notably to Eduardo Bolsonaro. Have you ever considered how much money that is? 8 million from deputies. Many millions possibly from this contract between Karina and the São Paulo City Hall. And she says there are other investors who put money into the movie. How much money is that for this movie? Such a scammer. So that's the suspicion. And so there has to be a lifting of secrecy on this bank and this fund whose holder in the United States is Carlisto, Paulo Carlisto, who is Eduardo Bolsonaro's lawyer. he should be summoned as well. This whole scheme should be exposed. And more situations will come to light of Flavio Bolsonaro with Vorcaro. It wasn't just one meeting, guys. There were other meetings because Flavio Bolsonaro himself said so, and one of the meetings is going to leak where I went to his house and so on and so forth. To me, this is a big money laundering scheme. That's why there are so many company tax IDs to throw off the money trail, and that's why there are so many straw men, because it's a lot of money. Where the Bolsonaro family is in the eye of the storm. Then you ask, Andre, did Daniel Volcaro know about this embezzlement scheme? I don't know. I don't know if he knew about the embezzlement scheme. I know that from all indications, millions of reeds were embezzled, and they used this movie to launder money. Senator Ciro Nogueira, for example, according to the federal police, they found evidence that he was receiving a monthly allowance of 300 to 500,000 reais, and that many of his bills were paid by Daniel Volcaro. And Daniel Volcaro distributed credit cards to those people who were helping him out in some way, politicians and so on and so forth. Just so you have an idea, the Ciro Nogueira, he went to New York, to Manhattan, and everything there is very expensive, very expensive. Living there is very expensive. Yeah, he went and stayed at a hotel where the daily rate was over 130,000 reais per day. And guess who paid for it? Exactly, Daniel Volcaro. The federal police have evidence of it all. That's why search and seizure warrants were carried out against him. I even believe that if the rapporteur of this case wasn't Minister Andre Mendonça, and if it were Alexandre de Moraes, Senator Ciro Nogueira would already be in jail. Flavio Bolsonaro would already be wearing an ankle monitor. And I also heard that the federal police is preparing a document to request access to Flavio Bolsonaro's bank records. The question that remains is, because I believe that the Attorney General will say, yes, it can be lifted. The question is, will Andre Mendonça authorize it? Because whether we like it or not, we know that Andre Mendonça is a Supreme Court justice today because he was appointed there by Bolsonaro. Otherwise, he would never be a Supreme Court justice, guys. For pretty obvious reasons, you know? So I'm looking forward to the federal police requesting access to Flavio's bank records soon. And I've heard from my sources that the federal police are already preparing that document. And it's very thorough. Exactly so that Andre Mendonça can't deny it. Because according to reports, the Attorney General also thinks this situation is necessary. It's long overdue. I've told you this before and I'll say it again. The modus operandi of the Bolsonaro family is to run away. Bolsonaro only didn't run away because Alexandre de Moraes acted quickly and put an ankle monitor on him. And look, he even tampered with the ankle monitor. Do you remember that? Which resulted in his arrest. You know that Eduardo Bolsonaro ran away? And notably, all signs indicate he was guaranteed millions from this Vorcaro scheme. He didn't go there to live in poverty. He's living like a rich man there in the United States. In fact, the mansion I mentioned to you, this fund belonging to Eduardo Bolsonaro's lawyer, which received millions from Daniel Vorcaro, bought a house in Texas, a mansion. So whose is it? Who is the owner who turns out to be the former Secretary for Cultural Promotion under Bolsonaro? He stated, Andre, if I'm not mistaken, it's Andre declared that he is the owner of the house. He didn't What is this, guys? That's it. It's all frontmen. Orange peel, orange juice, orange broth. He was Bolsonaro's Secretary of Culture Promotion. Promotion chosen by whom? By Bolsonaro's Minister of Culture. Who is that? And who was it? Mário Frias. Producer of the movie, who has a long-standing relationship with Karina, who received money from legislative earmarks for her NGO, and who got a contract with Ricardo Nunes with an activity that has nothing to do with her, worth 108 million reais, where the São Paulo City Hall, as we just found out, paid 3.5 million for her event. Hey, you. Yeah, so this Andre says he's the owner of the house, which was bought by the fund that received money from Daniel Vorcaro, whose representative is the lawyer Eduardo Bolsonaro. We can't hold this back any longer anymore. There has to be a major operation of searches and seizures, breaking of confidentiality, putting on electronic ankle bracelets, and confiscating passports. And a series of situations involving the main figure, Flavio Bolsonaro. There's no way Andre Mendonça can hold this back. There's no way, no way. Where Mario Frias is also involved, if Mario Frias hasn't already, already run away. Because he simply can't be found in Brazil. It's about to be 3 months now. So much so that Flavio Dino has now summoned the president of the Chamber of Deputies, Hugo Mota, to find out where the federal deputy, who is from Brazil and simply isn't in Brazil, is. Let's see what happens. Shall we take a look at some statements here, my dear? Hey, wow. Have you liked the live stream yet, my dear? For the love of God, help me out. Help me. For the love of God, everyone. You have a lot of patience, don't you?
Can Daniel Volcario's ties impact the right wing?
It can't impact the right wing because Lula's false narrative trying to link us to this won't hold up.
We defend. The Banco Master CPI, we've already signed on.
The allegations in the master case are very serious. And Minister Andre Mendonça acted correctly by authorizing the operation. I believe that if there is any suspicion, it must be investigated. Now, what Brazil expects is that everything will be cleared up until the end. No shielding, no backroom deals, no political protection. Banco Master belongs to Lula, and the DSS scandal is Lula's. Just like the Mensalão was Lula's. The Petrolão was Lula's.
Senator, why was your father's movie funded by Vorcaro? It's just that we're doing a report. The report shows a message from you asking Vorcaro for money. It would be important to hear your position, Senator. These are messages. We have already contacted your office.
This whole story that's being spread now is nothing more than a son looking for private investors to make a private film about his own father's story. Zero public money, not a cent from the Rouanet law, unlike this government that likes to spend public money to make self-promotion for themselves. I met Daniel Vorcaro in December 2024. There was no more Bolsonaro government, and there were absolutely no accusations against him. What happened is that, over time, he simply stopped honoring the payments to the council. There was a contract, yes, there was a contract, and by not paying these installments, there was a big chance the film wouldn't even be released. The film wouldn't even be finished.
Could Daniel Vorcaro's connection impact the right wing?
So it showed the before and after, right? Edu and Flavio Bolsonaro said it had nothing to do with them, that they weren't going to go after the right wing. Nobody, because nobody had any contact, that they didn't know him and so on. And then one by one, things started to unravel. Why? Because he lies. He lied a lot, and honestly, he doesn't have any credibility anymore. You can't believe absolutely anything Flavio says anymore. Because he lied, and then later, to reinforce the lie, he lied again. Then when he saw that the evidence was real, he tried to backtrack and normalize the absurdity, saying that everything was fine and that in fact there's even going to be one of those meetings and it'll probably leak. So there's no way around it, right?
The more Flavio Bolsonaro talks, the more he gets himself into trouble. Take a look at the history of lies. Journalist Monica Bergamo reports that Flavio Bolsonaro's and Nicolas's phone numbers are on Volcaro's cell phone. And he has the nerve to say that he never had contact with Vorcaro, that a lot of people had his phone number. And now on May 13th, the Intercept journalist, whose name is Mayodia, asks him about this. Check out his response.
Senator, why was your father's movie funded by Vorcaro?
That's a lie. I don't know anything about that.
That lie was at noon. Look at the Intercept article, 3 and 3:30 in the afternoon.
Daniel, even though you gave us permission to press you for it, I still feel awkward doing it, okay? But anyway, right? We're at a crucial moment in the film. And since there are a lot of overdue installments, man, everyone is tense. And I'm worried here about the opposite of what we hoped for with the film, you know?
Notice, he said he didn't know him. Now they're practically brothers. I am and always will be with you. Now watch his explanation after that.
I met Daniel Vorcaro in December 2024. The Bolsonaro government was no longer in power. There was absolutely no accusation against him.
And then the next day on Globo News, he gets tangled up again.
Senator, Daniel Vorcaro took public money and made shady deals with public money. You knocked on his door.
You're on all fours and taking things out of context.
Look, let me give you the date, sir.
Because nobody had any idea it was like that.
What a cynical guy. How was anyone supposed to know? You, Flavio Bolsonaro, went to visit Vorcaro after he was arrested and put on an ankle monitor.
I was with him one more time after that event, when he started using electronic monitoring.
The day before announcing his candidacy for president of the republic. Look at the level of intimacy. Did you go there to ask for money for your campaign? The more Flavio Bolsonaro talks, the more he gets himself tangled up. Look at the history of lies. The journalist Monica Bergamo reports that Flavio's phone is...
Guys, there's no way, right? It's one lie after another. Guys,
look at this. Flavio Bolsonaro went to visit Vorcaro the day before announcing he would run for president of the republic. Look how close they were. He went there to inform Vorcaro before telling everyone else.
and certainly also
Ask for money for
his campaign.
Guys, look at this. Flavio Bolsonaro went to visit Vorcaro the day before announcing. Did you know that it was you with your tax money who paid for Flavio Bolsonaro to travel to Sao Paulo and meet Vorcaro? That's right. On November 29th, right after he got out of jail, Flavio went there, met Vorcaro, and requested reimbursement for the round-trip ticket from the federal Senate. Public money. Did you know that it was you with your tax money who paid? That's right.
It's incredibly cynical, isn't it? The guy lies, then everything falls apart. And then he comes, makes excuses, gives a lame excuse and falls, and now he's trying to normalize everything. And to make the whole situation worse, it was discovered that he requested reimbursement for the plane ticket to Sao Paulo when he went to meet Daniel Vorcaro. Details of that meeting are still going to leak. The audio or the video is going to leak. I think the audio and the video, right? I don't know if it's just going to be the audio, but anyway, it's going to leak. Pretty soon his meeting with Daniel Vorcaro is going to leak. And he even charged the Chamber of Deputies for the travel expenses. Was there any public interest in his trip to visit the person from whom he was charging millions of reais for Bolsonaro's movie? In other words, let me repeat, Flavio went to the house of the thief who robbed the INSS, to the house of the thief who stole from several public servants' pension funds, public money from states and municipalities. He went to the thief's house where he was charging millions for Bolsonaro's movie. And he was saying it was the PT and the left's mafia with Bolso Master or with Banco Master, when in fact it's Flavio Bolsonaro's Bolso Master. And that this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. I can only imagine how panicked they must feel. It's just like the press conference, right? The one he gave after he had to confess that there's even a meeting that's about to come out, and he knows there's a lot more to come out. Yeah, this whole situation must have been terrifying for the Bolsonaristas. Embarrassing, right? and a comedy for many who already know that Flavio Bolsonaro is Bolsonaro's most corrupt son. A situation like chaotic that only those who don't want to see don't see. Because there's no way, obviously it's the police who will indict, the Attorney General's office who will file charges, and the courts that will try the case. Obviously that's how it is. But with everything that's been happening, all the rumors, he says one thing, then later we find out it's all a lie, so we can already ask one thing, why did he lie so much? Why did he try to hide this whole situation if, according to him, everything is honest, moral, ethical, and correct? Why? He is a public figure. He owes an explanation to the public. And he just lied, hid. And then when everything comes to light, he wants to make it seem like everything is normal, everything is legal, everything is beautiful and wonderful. You can't fall for that. There's no way to believe anymore no Flávio Bolsonaro. And I'm waiting for the next steps that should be taken. They have to be taken. Electronic ankle monitors, search and seizure, unsealing bank records, arrest, passport seizure, and a series of actions regarding Flávio Bolsonaro. And this whole network of straw men involved in this criminal situation, which for me is all interconnected. Connected to the criminal organization from Rio de Janeiro, to the criminal organization from São Paulo, and to the criminal organization from the Federal District of Brasilia. For the reasons I just told you. And this is just a tiny bit of everything that will still come to light. Hit the like button, like, comment, and share. And take a look at the first comment that I'm going to leave for you now. And join the WhatsApp channel here. Whenever there's a live stream, I'll send you a notification there. Kiss, take care, bye.